Welcome back to my happy little corral. Thanks for checking in. Today we're going to have a recommendation for you. I am going to recommend 3 books by the great Phyllis A. Whitney. I'm going to try and make this a short episode because I do have a tendency to go on and on, don't I? And it's not necessary. These are not going to be in-depth book reviews. These are just going to be some simple recommendations. The first book, Phyllis A. Whitney, for those of you who haven't read her, and I'm assuming a good portion of my audience has, because I know her name comes up quite a lot. 1903-2008. She died at the age of 104. The first book I'm going to recommend is 7 Tears for Apollo, published in 1963. And here, my friends, is that paperback. And this is the paperback I first read. This is still among my favorite Phyllis A. Whitney books. It has some of the typical motifs of a romance novel during this period, 63, through the 60s. Phyllis A. Whitney wrote a lot of different types of books. She was a remarkably talented and versatile writer. Target for Terror. I'll read the back because this is fun. Ever since the sudden tragic death of her husband, pretty Dorcas Brandt lived in fear. Too many frightening, unexplainable things had begun to happen. The fatal accident to a close friend, the mysterious warnings scrawled on her mirror. Her room was ransacked. Dorcas fled to Greece in search of sanctuary. But even on the beautiful island of Rhodes, she could not escape the shadows of terror. Was she just imagining it all? Had she lost her husband? Had the loss of her husband unhinged her mind? A woman with an unhinged mind, you're in trouble, bucko. Was someone really out to destroy her? Great book. So I took some notes on it. So she learns that her husband had been involved in some illicit dealings. So she's seeking peace with her small daughter. Now, the issue here what I really like about this is that she uses the Greek Isles as the setting. This is really something that became kind of a trend with romance thriller writers. And Phyllis A. Whitney was so good at this that she's the equal of anyone. Mary Stuart, Victoria Holt, that could do this. A marvelous stylist. Really good book. I recommend, if you have not, by some odd chance, read a book by Phyllis A. Whitney, find 7 Tears for Apollo. It's my favorite Phyllis A. Whitney book. I have kept it a very long time. So next up is Secret of the Emerald Star from 1964. What a year that was. And this is what they call a juvenile novel. Today they would call this a young adult novel. It is, Phyllis A. Whitney wrote tons and tons of really well-received and exciting bestsellers for young readers. And those seem to get the most attention these days. There is a website dedicated to Phyllis A. Whitney, and the person that runs it, and forgive me, I forget the name, but he recalls with fondness those young adult novels, those juveniles. This is one of them. It's really a very adult novel for a juvenile novel. It touches upon racism. So Robin Ward is a woman that moves in, and she's watching the old mansion. There's a blind girl, Stella, and she's a Catholic. And then there's Robin Ward's a Protestant, and then you have a Jewish boy. So she intentionally tackles the themes of diverse religious groups, ethnicity coming together and working together. She has at the back of this book an afterword about that, where she explains her inspiration for writing the book. It's a really a fun type of thing. You almost never see that type of thing now. I think, as good as Phyllis A. Whitney, I really think Phyllis A. Whitney stands tall with me. So Secret of the Emerald Star is a book any age can read, and you'll get into the themes. The Emerald Star makes reference to a pin that Stella has on her. There's a mystery involving that. I'm not going to go into the overall plot devices and so forth. And I noticed on my camera that the the lighting has been changing here. I don't know if it's because I have a window open or what's going on. Anyways, one more, and this is another really good book that I like. It's called Silver Hill. It was 1967. Melinda Rice returns to New Hampshire state to oversee her mother's burial. And this is, again, she uses the traditional motifs of romantic suspense thrillers, which is family conflict. And that, there's an old estate, you have family conflict. It's almost a given that you're going to have that. I don't know if romantic thriller writers are using these motifs in their novels today. You let me know. I don't know. I really don't read any of the modern ones except Jude Devereaux, and I haven't read one of Jude's books in a couple of years. My wife has. There's one that's just come out about the time this episode will air, which is a fantasy. So we're looking forward to that. I might cover Jude Devereaux again. I have an episode devoted to Jude Devereaux, and my wife makes an appearance in that episode way back when I was playing around with this. So anyways, Phyllis A. Whitney, marvelous thriller writers, and like the best of them, she can write action adventure better than anyone, certainly as well as anyone, depending on how critical you wish to be about it. I think she's quite wonderful. And these are just 3 of her books. Seven Tears for Apollo was the very first Phyllis A. Whitney book that I read. And it holds up. It holds up. So anyways, Babylon, Tommy boy. Let's have some fun with these books. So let's get to it, okay? I want you to have fun reading these books. I appreciate your really interesting and polite comments. I'm very lucky to have you people as my audience, and I thank you for that. It's all about just making recommendations here at McNulty's Book Corral, having fun with it, and holding up an old paperback usually that strikes a positive chord with so many of you. I really get a kick out of that when people tell me, I read that, I loved it, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't mean to demean that by saying blah, blah, blah. It's fun. And thank you for that. Stay well, my friends. Stay happy. Feed your brain. Read a book.